Welcome to Business on the Vine. I'm your host, Lady Jen Duplessis, and in this dynamic series, we dive into the challenges, breakthroughs, and victories of entrepreneurs who have turned their passion into success. Welcome. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you here. Welcome, entrepreneurs, right? That's what we're doing. Today with me, I have Hersh Rephun. And I met Hersh on the Podcasters Cruise not too long ago, and we just hit it off. And I said, you have to be on my show. You've got to be on my show. And, I'm just excited to have you here today so we can talk a little bit more about your specialty, which is branding. But it's a special kind of branding. And so we want to be able to have that kind of a conversation with you. But first, tell us a little bit about one part of your background. We have your bio in the notes so people can read about, but one of the things that I think is so exciting about you is that you came from, a comedic background, acting background, media, movies, all of those types of things. And how did that and so tell us a little bit about that, but then how did it bring you into personal branding, which is one of the things we'll be talking about today.
Thanks, Jen. Well, it's great to be here. Great to be here with you, and to speak with your audience. I started out, it's kind of true. Even when I was a little kid, I was doing acting, and the stand-up comedy seemed very natural to me to want to get up in front of people, and do characters, do voices, and then lend that to screenplays and write screenplays about characters and all kinds of fictional stuff. I never thought that I would really write or work in any area that was nonfiction. And what happened was I was going to study film at School of Visual Arts in New York, and I was asked by the chairman to take a course in advertising, and I didn't necessarily equate advertising with nonfiction either,
Right.
because it was like, you're selling stuff, and
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
but I was drawn into working with people who made commercials. My first job was representing directors of TV commercials, and as their rep, I got close to them. I got to meet them, hang out with them. They would ask me my opinions about storyboards and things like that you'd never get in like a mailroom at CAA or something. Um, and I had lunch with Eric Clapton one day. He was starring in a music video that we were producing. So it was really fascinating to me. And I started writing the bios and the press materials for my clients. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I said, I'm not BSing anybody. I'm not making stuff up about people who that isn't true, was my idea of publicists, of what advertising people and publicists did. I said, I'm selling the truth, basically.
Mhm.
And it really captivated me, because the thing that I loved about comedy was honesty. And I love the fact that you could be genuine and tell the truth, but put a spin on it so people could digest it better, make it funny, make it go down a little easier. And I found that in branding, in personal branding in particular, because when you're dealing with either an individual or a company of which they're the face, you're really getting down to the essence of who someone is and what they stand for. And I find that to be so fulfilling, even more so than comedy, because comedy, again, is for entertainment. This is really for the purpose of their building and proliferating their business, their passion.
Yeah. I love it. And and I know that you have a new book coming out, Selling the Truth. And I know it's available for pre-order. So we'll be sure to have the link in there and everything. But I love that you're saying not tell the truth, but sell the truth, right? And so this is where authenticity comes in with sales and with companies and corporations. But how do you incorporate the human, or not the humanity, but the humor into what you're doing with people? I mean, I'm imagining a corporate bio or a bio for an entrepreneur, and I'm going, is there humor in this bio that catches people's eyes? Or is it more in the vocal piece of when someone explains themselves that they're putting some humor into that?
Yeah, I look at it this way. I describe it as humor and humanity because I feel like they go together. Like there is no just one side of it. So I'm not doing comedy with
Bios.
them, right? I'm not doing comedy bios, but I'm really tapping into the humanity. And sometimes if you think about it, the humanity is where we laugh at ourselves a little bit. We're a little self-deprecating, or we're not so judgmental of others, or we'll so
Yeah.
the humor has to do with a sense of humanity more than being funny. But I do find that that honesty, that level of honesty, that selling the truth allows you to be a little more creative because there's less hubris. It doesn't come off as condescending. So it you can't have the humor without the humanity. And
Okay.
I think that the humor comes into it quite often in the work and the working relationship I have with clients. The ability to laugh and take things a little bit easy and have fun is the atmosphere I like to create because I feel like that's important too. So their bio may not be funny, but it'll probably be clever or at the very least very human and relatable.
Yeah. So do you have an example of someone that you've just, recently done one for that you could kind of share what this really means? Because, for someone who's listening in, they're saying, okay, so you write, and I know it's not just bios. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
be very clear
I
about that.
know.
It's not just bios.
It does start with that though.
Yeah,
I
but I
do.
get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you're not a bio writer. You're much more than that. We're going to talk about that too. But if someone's saying, well, okay, so he writes my bio, but it's not going to be funny, but it is going to be funny. It's going to have humanity. Can you give us an example of maybe a line that you've used in someone's bio recently that demonstrates that humanity piece with the humor?
Okay. Well, you're putting me on the spot to
It's
remember
okay. That's what
a
we do
line
on
from
shows.
from a bio or mission statement. I will say, let's see. There probably are funny there's funny lines in bios. I could look something up. Let me look something up quickly because I'll tell you while I'm doing it. There's someone that I'm working with now. Her name is Deb Coviello. She's known as the drop-in CEO. And she essentially is a fractional operations expert. She
Gotcha.
comes in and really instills peace of mind in a chaotic environment that is the C-suite. And so she helps CEOs do that. And one of the things that I latched onto, which wasn't funny, but was very human, was that she had a tumultuous childhood and she wanted to not draw like a whole thing about it, like it's all about having a challenging childhood, but it was like here I came through on the other end wanting serenity, wanting to bring peace of mind. And so that human element that a corporate executive might not typically use and say, okay, I don't know where I'm going to even put that. I'm not going to tell my life story of the challenge I had as a child. It's just too much. I
Right.
want to
Right.
focus on my offer and what I. But it really did seem very important and integral for this, and I incorporated it.
Well, and especially, yeah, especially if she's known as the drop-in CEO, she wants people to know that, she's got this humanity and that she's not there to be Tilla the Hun, that she's had somewhat and maybe described differently, as some type of a background that says, look, I get it. I'm there with you. I've been there with you. I understand it as well. One of the things I have in mind is um, part of what one of the parts of what I have is who would have ever thought. So I could have said, Lady Jen has this, this awful background, and she comes from dirt and dust, and now she she has all this sparkly whatever, right? I could have done that, but instead, what I said is, who would have ever thought that Jenny, who ain't got a penny, could have funded $1 billion in loans over a 40-year career? so it was like, oh, she has a story behind there, but she didn't dwell on it, right? So the humanity that's in there, and it's making and poking fun at what I do, or who I was, the whole Jenny who ain't got a penny piece. And so people can't call me Jenny, as you found out one time, because someone called me Jenny, and I was like, excuse me, my name's not Jenny, don't call me
Yeah.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Right. At dinner. Yeah, so I really love that you're incorporating that in there. So that's a bio side. So that's some of the personal brand, that you're talking about, building that personal brand that, I love this. This is in your LinkedIn that says, a personal brand builder. You're a personal brand builder who listens first, hears your personal voice, and then puts into words and then implements it in accordance with the personal brand strategy. And I love that, because so often people don't listen. They
Yeah.
have their own agenda. And I experienced that a couple of days ago. I was talking with someone and I was kind of explaining some mantras I use and some other things. And I could sense through the phone, they didn't really care what I was saying. They just
Yeah.
wanted to get their word to me. Well, I think you should use this word. And I was saying, but let me explain this whole piece, so I love that that's something that you do with people. And I've experienced how much of a great listener you are and how you
Oh,
capture
thank
so many things. But it goes beyond that. It goes into building that personal brand and selling the truth. So let's talk about, for the business owner, for the company who's listening in, or a C-suite executive who's listening and say, okay, so I know I need a personal brand. I know I can go to Hersh and I can get a personal brand that might be unique and a bio that might be unique. But talk about selling the truth. How do we incorporate that into our daily activities, which could be selling and marketing, which could be I don't want to use this word, but I got to find another word. Encouraging collaboration within our team.
you.
What I wanted to
Yeah.
use was convincing people to do what I ask them to do, right? But
Yeah.
encouraging collaboration within our team. Or even someone who's pitching to a VC firm, who's trying to get funding. How do you incorporate this selling the truth in that? Is there a formula? Is there, ideas of, other than just saying, hey, just speak the truth?
Yeah, and I'm glad you threw that out there. Just speak the truth, because it isn't that, because speaking the truth is just speaking the truth. Selling the truth means you want the other person to buy this. You want them to give you buy-in.
Yeah.
And so the way I look at it to begin with is, well, first of all, the truth is really all we have to sell. Like, we can try to snow people, BS people, and in my book I have a whole chapter about BS artists and snake oil salesmen and other people we should avoid, right?
Yeah.
But the fact is that we we have to get on the same page with the audience, and the only way we can do that is to know the page we're on. So the selling the truth really begins with knowing yourself. And I think a lot of times, just like you were just saying, if I didn't listen to them, I wouldn't know, number one, who they think they are, who
Mm-hmm.
they really are, who other people probably perceive them as, because now I'm listening to them, like in the mindset of, let's say, their audience. I'm putting myself in the mindset of their audience, and I'm listening to them talk. So I know all these things about them. I'm learning all these things, and I'm trying to figure out, well, do they have an accurate perception? Are they getting the truth from their audience? So I give them the truth about how I perceive them, and any shortfalls that may exist, and some things that the first thing we talked about this once. I said one of the first things I ask prospective clients is, are you coachable? Because if they're not,
They're shut off.
then
Yeah.
then there's no point. But
Yeah.
if they are, then they'll hear it from me straight. They'll know where it's coming from, and they'll start to process their truth in a way that is, of course, incomparable, because there's no two of anyone. But it's when we get in touch with that person we really are that we can create messaging that's totally unique. If I am confused and I also just look at someone else and I go, I want to be like them, I want to be like that person, my stuff will sound like them.
Yeah.
But if I figure out who I am and I dig a little bit deeper and I am willing to give and to find that truth, then I probably will have a really compelling, interesting, and totally incomparable message.
Yeah. Well, I have a little plaque here in my office that says be yourself, everybody else is taken, right? And
Right. Yeah.
right, and that's really what you're talking to and you're speaking to is you have to be yourself. But I love what you're doing because a typical, and I know you're not, I mean, a little bit of what you lean into, Hersh, is some PR, right? Because some of this
Yeah.
is the messaging and stuff. But most PR companies are, what do you want to get out there and how do you want to do it? And they let the client lead. And I love that you're sort of in everybody's face saying, hey, look, you can't see your ears. What's coming out of your mouth doesn't match what I'm
Yeah.
seeing or what your marketing is. And you can't see your own ears. So I'm going to be the beacon of truth for you that you probably have never seen before. And it might hurt a little bit, but it's all in love and in trying to get you to the point where your message can get out there and your revenue can increase, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I think that great advice is something that we probably already know is true. We just are staying away from it. Maybe it's too sensitive. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to know it. But if my oldest son is a writer, I said to him very early on, I said, when people critique your work, if it's great criticism, you're going to know it. You're going to recognize it. You may not want to hear it. You may not want to go back to the drawing board. You may not want to do all the work or take the hit. But if you know they're right, listen to them. If
Yeah.
if it doesn't resonate at all and it doesn't make any sense, there's no point in listening
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. And I think that's so true. When you hear something and your gut tells you, I already know it. So why do people avoid this so much? Why do business owners, they already know, it's not working. I call it the white knuckle, approach because they're just holding on to something that they heard a long time ago or something. And, they just don't let go to grow. I always say that, let go to grow,
Yeah.
right? But they don't let go of that white knuckle message. Let's call it a message or whatever it may be. But why do you think there's so much resistance to change or to let it sink in and confront it? Because it's just delaying success.
And it's delaying success. And ironically, the reason they're doing that is because they're impatient, because they think that change is going to take time.
Mm.
If I nuance this thing, if I do, it's going to take time. And you nailed it. They're actually extending the process. They're
By not
delaying the
doing something. Yeah.
gratification.
Yeah.
And that's part of it. And the other part is that they don't know the difference between being tenacious and being stubborn. Tenacious means they're going to stick with it till they get it right. Stubborn is they're going to stick with it until you give in.
Yeah.
And
Right.
That's not a win,
Right.
right? And
Absolutely.
so but that's what I try to really tap into. I just spoke with someone, a prospective client, extremely successful and accomplished. And, it's hard in some cases not to be intimidated a little bit by your client or by that's
Yeah.
who you want to work for.
Mhm.
You want to work with people
Mhm.
who are somewhat intimidating. But I had a strong opinion about something. And, I did have that split second where I was like, ooh, he may just hate me. This person may just hate me. He may just think I'm an idiot, and maybe I am an idiot. And but I plowed ahead anyway. And I think he really appreciated my perspective. Um, but I like that level of difficulty. I like dealing with people who are accomplished, and yet there's something more that they
Yeah.
want. There's more. They know it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. So let's talk about your business for a second here. What's one of the biggest struggles that you've had in your business? This is why we're doing Business on the Vine. We want to hear through the grapevine some of the challenges and secrets and tips that others have had. What has been your biggest struggle? Because in this arena, it's not a struggle, but that doesn't mean you don't have struggles in other parts of your your practice? What are some of the things that you've experienced and perhaps overcome that you could shed some light on for someone who might be experiencing the same thing?
Yeah, thank you, because I do think that that's a really potent thing. We're all experiencing challenges. We all have reached a point where we don't know which way to go, left or
Yeah.
right. It's
Up,
like
down, turn
up,
around.
down,
Yeah.
and this follows up on that part we were talking about taking criticism or advice.
Yeah.
I reached a point where maybe, I don't know, 2, 3 years ago, and I felt like I'm going to be open to all kinds of advice about how to sell myself, not my brand, but my sales. How am I going to do the business part of representing myself or hiring others to represent me? And I opened myself so wide that I feel a lot of garbage got in there,
Yeah. Yeah.
where
Mhm.
I thought, okay, well, I know what I'm good at. I'm going to find someone who's good at that, and they're going to do that part for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you told me yourself, you're no one's as good at selling yourself as you are, as we are.
Right.
We know ourselves
Right. Yeah. We
better.
did talk about
we,
that. Yeah.
we know ourselves better. And it took me a lot of iterations of my sales process to realize, okay, now I'm at a place where I have absorbed all this information. Some of it's been good, some of it has yielded a tiny bit of result. Like, I don't stand on ceremony when it comes to I have to get the whole 100% from every engagement, every
Right.
coach I hire,
Right.
everybody, and I'm very pro coaches and consultants, but I do feel like, I spent a lot of time second guessing myself by way of being open. And that's been the biggest challenge. And I felt like I finally reached a place now where I know I know what I didn't know, I know what I still don't know, and I know what I don't need to ask for help with.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know?
Well, and then it creates a lull sometimes in business, right? Because you're saying,
Yeah,
whoa, whoa, I'm just going to stop all the flurry of everything. And so, listen into this because we
yeah,
have a tendency to chase after the shiny object, which is SOS. It's this help,
yeah,
help. We're yelling for
yeah,
help, right? And we grab the wrong things at the wrong time. That's part of the issue, or maybe we have a coach that isn't quite ready for us, or we're not ready for the coach. I know I've had clients that I thought were ready for me and they weren't ready for me. They played a big game, and then when we got down
right,
to brass
right,
tactics, I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to refund you. I think I'm going to, I want to work with you, but I'll work with you at some other time. Let me send you to somebody else. So I think that in business, that's one of the things that we're doing is we're just grabbing at straws so often, and we're losing so much time. And if we could
yeah,
just slow it down, and see it. And I love that you're being vulnerable in that and saying, look, I was trying to sell everything to everybody and get everything I could get and consume and consume. And then I started following my own spit because I had all these, I always say that, right? I was like a squirrel that had all these nuts in my mouth, right? I had them all and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. My cheeks were puffing out and I started choking on my own saliva because I wasn't getting rid of anything.
yes.
It was just
I
consumption.
wouldn't be as I wouldn't be quite so graphic as that, but yes, that is what it feels like sometimes. But yeah,
That was the first thing that came to my mind. And by the way, I've talked about it for a couple of years. I'm like, I feel like I'm drowning in my own, but
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I love that. And it's important. Well, okay, so that's the struggle. What's been the best part of what your business has brought to you personally and then to your clients?
The best part has been recognizing that I am this one thing, this personal brand builder, because that is what I am sharing with my clients. This person I was referring to about talking
Yeah.
to, where they had myriad accomplishments, so many things they can do, so much stuff. And I'm like, there's got to be one thing. It's got to be only one thing. And it's not that you only do one thing, it's that the one thing that you do, they get you from that.
Yeah.
It's like Oprah, nobody needs to know all the different things that Oprah has done. They don't need to know her credits. They know she's Oprah, and Oprah connotes something. And that's what I think a lot of us are really grasping for. And I feel like I I I at least unlock that in my own mind. Just
Yeah.
be able to see myself and say, I'm that. And then be able to do my job that way, because that has freed up a lot of space in my head that I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about anymore. So that's the best thing, is the clarity that I've gained, because it opens the door to much more joy and happiness, and being being okay with being happy is another thing that, that I think sometimes we just take a long time getting to that, just being
We do.
okay with being happy,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
we do. As you're describing this, I'm thinking of like a Home Depot, right, or a Lowe's, where you go in and they have everything.
Yeah.
They have everything there. And it works for them, but not everyone can be a Home Depot or Lowe's. Some people have to be the kitchen shop,
Yeah.
the lumber place, the flooring company, and they do very well. These little small companies do very well because they stay in that one lane. Like, the flooring guy, I'm going to go to the flooring guy, or the carpet guy. And I think we have to remember that not everybody can be, the big grandioso, thing. And I can't imagine. I was thinking of one of my clients. I can't imagine. She owns a roofing company, that all of a sudden she goes, well, I have a roofing company, but we're going to start making stuffed animals. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Just because she has a passion for it, it doesn't make any sense to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's another, that's part of that too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I would go to an event. Let's just say I went to a fundraiser. So it wasn't like specific industry or something. I go to a fundraiser, somebody says, "What do you do?" And I'm thinking, well, what do they want me to do? What do they need me to do? They need a comedian? Should I say I'm a comedian because that's what I did last night? Should I say I'm a copywriter or a creative director? Or should I say I'm a brand strategist? Or should I say that I'm, an author? Like, what should I say? And I think that is part of what you're alluding to, because if there's too many disparate things, it's like you really aren't any one
Right.
thing.
Nobody understands what you should be called
Yeah.
for. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I mean, I always use this example with Starbucks. I mean, I've never, ever seen a commercial of Starbucks that was anything other than coffee or their frappa somethings, right? It's
Right.
all drinking out of a cup. They don't market their little cake pops. They don't market whatever, their egg bites. They don't market
Right.
anything else. They market the one thing, to pull you in for the one thing, to let you know that they're the best at doing that, whether you like
Yeah.
Starbucks or not, right? My husband prefers just plain coffee. But whether you like it or not, that's what pulls and draws you in, is the expertise. And while you're there, you're like, oh, look at, they have potato chips, and oh, look at, they
Yeah.
have yogurt, and they have bananas, and they have all these other things. And that's good, but they may not have oranges, and I have to go someplace else. And that's
Yeah.
okay. It doesn't mean they have to carry it too.
No. And in fact,
Yeah.
if you've been in an airport, if you travel as much as we do, you know that, like, there's a long line at Starbucks, and some of them really want that impossible sandwich, but they're doing it because they want to get the coffee. They can go get a parfait somewhere else. They can get it, they can get a parfait somewhere else. They can get a bagel somewhere else, but they're waiting online for that coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And Dunkin', for example, changed its brand from Dunkin' Donuts to Dunkin' because they were selling more coffee than anything else.
Yeah.
So they also got the memo. And now good luck getting like all of those different donuts, because they don't sell them
They
anymore.
don't
It's like
carry as many.
they
Yeah.
don't carry as
They
many,
don't carry my
you
favorite
know,
blueberry
the
donut.
they don't all have the crullers, the chocolate cruller, but
Yeah.
yeah, be great at what you're great at.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a bad niche in that way. you
Right.
know um but having all those other skills is great. Doesn't mean you don't do it. It doesn't mean you don't.
Oh yeah,
There's
it
what
doesn't
you
mean we can't help people, get
Oh,
whatever
for
else
sure.
they need. And then there are some things where we go, you know what, that's just not my specialty, but I've got colleagues that I work with, and this is so important in business. So many people And especially brick and mortar, I find that they are just so much in a silo of what they do and not really expanding to referral partners to say, hey, you could bring more traffic into my company and I could do the same thing, right? And you and I've talked about it too. You're great at branding. I'm not great at branding, but I'm really good at helping people in business, the business
Yeah.
of the business. And that's where the collaboration comes to us is, wow, I'm going to get your brand straight, and then watch out, you're going to start growing your business, but now you have other problems and now you have to go to Jen.
Right.
You know, and I think that that's something that a lot of businesses miss when they try to be everything to everybody, or they just say, sorry, I can't do it,
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of,
You mentioned the brick and mortar thing. This inverse idea of trying to do too many things. I was talking to someone who I thought I could really help with their personal brand. And he was already engaged with a marketing person that was focusing on retail, on getting his product in stores. And I was like, and he goes, oh, well, they're doing it as part of the whole thing. I don't know what to do. Should I split it up or do it? And I'm like, okay, this was one of those things. You have to be honest. I said, I don't see anything that they've done that would suggest that you should trust them with your personal brand.
no way.
They can get your thing in the stores, but that is a very different. Now I go, now me, I don't know any retailers in that thing. I'm not helping you get anything into stores. I'm not even not even doing the marketing. I'm just developing that message, that core message and core strategy around who you are and who you are in terms of your business. And that's it.
Yeah, yeah, well,
Then there's, you
yeah,
know,
it's like having Kellogg's, or what with Tony the Tiger, right? The cereal in the store. The cereal's in the store, but the store isn't pitching it. I can't go to Giant or Kroger or wherever your Piggly Wiggly, whatever your, different stores are. They're not going to go market that Tony the Tiger's in there. Tony the
yeah,
Tiger has to market, go find me in a store,
yeah.
you
You're
know?
not going to let, I mean, you're not going to let the people who do the best POP in the world, the best point of purchase stuff in the world, tell you what your personal brand is,
Yeah.
or even your corporate brand.
Yeah.
Even the agency that does the POP doesn't do the creative for the Super Bowl commercial. It's just
Right.
not the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope this message is landing with you, because it's important. I mean, this is an important part of business too, is making sure that you've got this brand, ironed down, ironclad, it's moving along, and you feel comfortable with it. And you feel that anytime you talk to somebody, you never have to kind of squirm a little bit and go, well, I told them I could do it, but I hope they don't call me, but I do hope they call me, right? We want them to call you. We want them to work with you because you have that expertise. And so I absolutely love that. All right, so as we finish up our time here today, let's talk about these life marketing models. I don't even understand what it means. So tell me what this all means.
Yeah, it's an offshoot of my writing the book. So the book is called Selling the Truth, and I call it a memoir, which is like a semi-memoir as I see it. It's part of store anecdotes from my life, but geared toward success in business.
Mhm.
And what I do is I talk a little bit about this yes brand method, which is, yes brand is my company, yes brand is my podcast. It's all built on positivity. It's all built on the idea from improv where you always say yes to any suggestion. Martians landed, you say yes, and they're wearing Prada suits, and no, and the story continues.
Right.
But what I realized as I was writing the book and combining these life lessons in there was that the yes brand method is not just a tool for selling the truth, it's a life marketing model, meaning what am I selling in my with my life? What is my life's message? So yes brand, which is all about building on top and not taking anything away. I realized, well, my whole life is about positivity, positronics, as I use the Isaac Asimov term. But I say, positronics is it's always going to be more. We're always going to make it better. We're going to make it bigger, more powerful. We're never going to knock it down, take it away, throw anything away. So it becomes this life marketing model in my mind where you're like, this is what I'm going to pass down to my kids. This is going to be my legacy. It's going to be yes. It's going to be the legacy of yes to all good things. That's going to be my motto for life. But it doesn't really have that much to do with business. It now transcends business to become not just a business marketing model, but a life marketing model.
Yeah, it becomes a way of your thinking, right? So it's a mindset shift in your business. Instead of no, 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 it's, what else can we do? And I love the yes and it's funny. I love that you have it, because I've noticed it even before I met you, that someone else was, saying something very similar to it, but I love the way that you explain it, because it's more clear on how and why you want to do it, other than people saying, well, don't say no, or, all of those things, but everything is yes. And I love, and of course, you're able to apply it to your comedy and your improv, because that's exactly what it was, is building on that instead of diminishing. And sometimes it gets to the point, I've seen the improv, where it gets to the point where we don't know where else we're going to go. Okay, next one. Right. But I love that you've got this so dialed in, to help businesses, say yes to a lot of things. And particularly for the purpose of this session, right, this episode of this podcast, and saying yes to your personal brand, and making sure that you've niched yourself down to, a manner that is really your expertise, and you'll feel more comfortable there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels uniquely your own. Thank you for saying all that, by the way, Jen. I really do appreciate it. And I do feel like when that skit ends, there's always the callback. In comedy, the callback is 10 minutes later, you mention something that was funny 10 minutes ago, and you kind of wrap it all up in a bow.
Right.
So it really never ends. It comes back later.
Yeah.
But again, it's uniquely you. No one can unfold that whole spool the way you can. It's
Yeah.
your story.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Well, again, Hersh, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so delighted to learn from you and to hear about your story. And, if you're watching today and listening, get in touch with Hersh. We have all of his connections below, all of his links. Get in touch with him so that you can perhaps explore this opportunity of developing your personal brand, or fine tuning that personal brand, into something that gives you the real results. So with that, any last parting thoughts that you have, Hersh?
All I would say is, going back on the message that you asked about, ups and downs and best parts and worst parts. It's a lot simpler than we often give ourselves credit for.
Yeah.
Deep down inside us is a great instinct. And sometimes we need a little help getting in touch with it, but it's there. It's there. And more than likely, it's just getting cluttered with a bunch of stuff we don't really need. So go simple. And that's probably the first step to going big.
Yeah. Go simple as the first step to going big. I love that. Keep it simple, stupid. Right?
That's right.
And watch what happens.
Yep.
I love it. Thank you, Hersh. Thank you so much for being with us on this episode. I appreciate it so much. Yeah, and thanks for listening in. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you on the next show. Thank you for joining us on Business on the Vine. If you found value in today's conversation and would like additional support, go to supportfromjen.com. Remember, the best ideas are always discovered on the Vine, so keep innovating, stay inspired, and continue to grow.